From one sports fan to another, hello, how are we doing? Welcome back to 933 Sports. This is the first of a 4-part, 2-week episode series where we do all our predictions for the upcoming NFL season. It's going to start it off today with half the AFC, the North Division and the East Division. Do the South and the West on Friday. Next week, same format. We'll do it for the NFC. And we'll cap next Friday's episode by doing a full-on playoff prediction. I mapped all this out yesterday. I locked in my predictions. And so I have it pulled up. I'm recording this on my laptop. I have another tab pulled up that has everything on it. So we are locked in, prepared, ready to go. Training camps have started. Pads are being put on. Early storylines are emerging. The Hall of Fame game's Thursday night, which is exciting as heck. I'm going to be watching that because I'm able to. Because, sure, let's do it. Before we do NFL today, I do have to talk about Tarik Skubal being traded to the Dodgers. That happened 2 days ago. It was Saturday night that trade went down. And yeah, Tarik Skubal, reigning American League Cy Young winner, gets traded to who else but the Dodgers, just like we all expected but also hoped wouldn't happen. It's very unfortunate in the sense that the Dodgers look all but destined to three-peat and win it again this year. Because they're so loaded, it does create some questions about competitive balance in baseball, and all but guarantees there will be a lockout in 2027 due to discussions needing to take place as it pertains to a salary cap and capping how much you're able to pay players. Really what it is it's going to be more trust busting to make sure we don't have to keep the sport interesting, to keep a competitive balance so that way one team doesn't just buy everybody. I will say, and I've heard this take thrown around as well, the Dodgers are part of the problem. Yes, they are not the only problem. You can blame the Marlins, the Pirates, some of these smaller market owners who don't spend money, whose payroll is in the sub $40 million range. They are choosing to be bad. They are choosing not to pay people. So they are just as much of a problem as the Dodgers, who are spending out their eyeballs. And honestly, I'd prefer it if everybody spent out their eyeballs instead of, some of these owners being like, no, we're losing money, we're not going to do it. So my thought is, yes, we do need a salary cap. But just as importantly, we need a salary floor as well. I do think when it comes to a potential lockout, and all but destined to lock out for next year, I think what is very likely is to get both sides to come together and meet in the middle is, yeah, we'll do the salary cap, but we have to have a salary floor as well. You have to pay us at least this much, and it's going to be way harsher than it currently is. So, the Dodgers are going to three-peat. That starting rotation now with Skubal is the best starting rotation I've ever seen, ever. They already have the best record in baseball. They've won it the last 2 years. It is what it is. I hate it. I don't like it. I want a salary cap just because it makes baseball boring when one team is just wiping the floor with everybody. But yeah, I will say, too, I've heard this thrown around in regards to the idea of a salary floor, and I don't... in concept, it's a great idea. In implementation, not so much. I do think baseball could benefit from a relegation system, much like European soccer or, how the PGA Tour is going to adopt a similar system next year. Throw something out there where, hey, if you are really bad, if you're one of the worst teams in the league, you get relegated to a sub-league. And I think some of these owners would start paying a little more money and trying to actually win instead of just coasting along at that point. So that's really all I have to say on that. It just kind of, it's just another addition, another reason why things are going to go the way we already thought they were going to go. We already thought things were heading towards a lockout. We already thought that the league was unbalanced and unfair, and this only solidified that and made a lot of our worst fears in many ways, both on the field and off, realized. So it's unfortunate, but it's also like, but if you're the Dodgers, like, you traded basically nothing to get him. You're willing to pay him, and it's legal to do so. Like, as much as I don't like the Dodgers, it's like, yeah, I mean, can I honestly say I wouldn't do the exact same thing? No. If I was their general man, if I was their GM, I'd do the exact same thing. If I was given the green light from the owner to go spend money and build the best team ever, I would do that. I would make that trade in a heartbeat. And so I hate him, but I can't knock him for it. So it is what it is. We're going to go ahead and talk football now. How we're going to do this is today, like I said, we're going to do the AFC North and the AFC East. I have each team ranked by their division, like their finishing position, how I think they're going to finish at the end of this year. So we'll go bottom to top, 4-1 for every division. So that starts us in the AFC North. And the team that I think is going to finish last in the AFC North this year is Cleveland, to nobody's surprise. They traded their best player in Myles Garrett. They have a new head coach who I don't think Todd Monken's long for this world. If you tell me he gets fired after one season, I would not be surprised. Deshaun Watson's back throwing. He looks terrible. Like, you actually look at it, it's bad. He is washed, and that contract's the worst contract in the history of professional sports for Cleveland, and they're still, until he's off their payroll, they're just not going to be competitive. It's just a really, really bad contract. And think they turned their back on Baker to get this is crazy. But yeah, they traded away Myles Garrett because they know they're going to be bad. They got, Jared Verse back. They got some pieces, but it's not. I'm sorry, Jared Verse. He's a really good player, and he kind of got the short end of the stick in the Myles Garrett trade. But I mean, you're back home, I guess, if nothing else. I would expect Shedeur Sanders to be the week one starting quarterback. I do think somehow, some way, I actually think he's the best quarterback on that roster. Now, does that mean he's good? No. I mean, like, what did Shedeur look like last year in his playing time? He looked like a day 3 pick that wasn't fully ready and still needed a lot more time. And I think you might see him look a little bit better this year, but there's nobody around him. He has nobody, like, offensive line ain't great. They've got guys here and there, but, I mean, it's the Browns. Do we really expect much? No. Nobody's optimistic. Nobody has them in playoff contention or anything like that, especially in that division where, you have 3 other teams who, when healthy, when fully loaded, we expect them to be pretty solid. That's 6-year games. I mean, they could easily go 0-6 in their division, and it would shock nobody. So that kills you right there. You lose 3 more games, and then you're out of the playoffs. So, which is definitely going to happen. So, yeah, Browns finished last in that division to the surprise of nobody. It'll be another high drafting year for them. So, just stuck in shitville. What are you going to do? Finishing third in the AFC North, I have Pittsburgh. I know the top 3 of the AFC North is kind of fluctuated these past few years. A lot of it depends on the health of the quarterbacks, specifically Burrow and Lamar. I have Pittsburgh in third, and I expect Lamar and Burrow to stay healthy this year. My thing is injuries happen to every team, and yes, Burrow's and Lamar specifically can be very injury prone. They are probably the 2 most injury prone quarterbacks, or like high caliber injury prone quarterbacks in the league. I expect them to both be pretty healthy this year. I expect them to both be pretty good this year. I think both of them are disappointed about how the last year or years have gone. So I expect those teams to be at the top of their game. So that means the Steelers are going to drop off a little bit. They're going to finish third. They're going to miss the playoffs. Now they could miss the playoffs at 9-8. They could still go 9-8, 8-9, and miss the playoffs. I am not as high on the Mike McCarthy, Aaron Rodgers last ride as much as some people. Aaron Rodgers is 42, and he looks like it. He plays like it. He's not bad, but he's not the guy. Like, he's not the guy that's going to throw that Hail Mary or, pick up, just throw that deep shot down the field to win the game like he used to. And I expect Pittsburgh, they've still got TJ Watt. They've still got pieces on defense. They still got DK Metcalf. They still have weapons, but there's nowhere where you're like, I love it. Outside of TJ Watt, you're never like, no, I love this for Pittsburgh. I like it. It could go well, but it's not like we haven't seen it. They got creamed in the playoff game. They almost didn't even make the playoffs last year. If Tyler Loop makes that field goal, the Ravens go to the playoffs instead of them. And that's even with, the Ravens losing Lamar for so long and all that stuff. So I'm not confident in the Steelers at all. I think they're going to be pretty poor this year. And I think Rodgers is going to go out with a whimper more so than he would maybe like or expect. So I have Pittsburgh missing the playoffs, finishing third in their division. So finishing second, I have Cincinnati. Like I already said, I expect Joe Burrow to be back healthy. I expect him to be dealing. He's normally pretty good first season coming off these big injuries that he's had. He's going to be, I expect another 35, 40-plus touchdown season. I think he's going to be very, very good this year. And I think Jamar Chase is going to be, and T. Higgins are going to eat with him cooking, help elevate that. I think them getting Sexy Dexy on defense is going to also be a big help. I know they've been fighting in training camp. I know there's been some problems, but I do think this team's hungry, and this team is frustrated by how the past few seasons have gone. They feel like they've missed some opportunities to do some big things. Really, the past 2 to 3, it's been 3 seasons since they've even made the playoffs, and they're feeling it. They're frustrated by it. I think this is the year. I think they actually do make the playoffs this year. How far they get, I'll let y'all know in a couple of episodes when I go through that. But I do have the Bengals making the playoffs as a wild card team this year. I think they've done enough on defense, and Joe Burrow staying healthy, I think it'll be enough to win 10 or 11 games and make the playoffs. If they don't, Zach Taylor gets fired. That's pretty obvious. Zach Taylor, you can't go 4 seasons without making the playoffs. Yes, you've had injury problems and everything else, and the team hasn't exactly been constructed in a great way by the GM, but at a certain point, you as the head coach, it's on you. You got to coach with what you got, and if you can't make the playoffs at a certain point, you can't have Joe Burrow going through his prime not making the playoffs. It's just not acceptable. If he hadn't had those 2 years where they made those 2 AFC championships and went to that Super Bowl, if those 2 years hadn't happened, we'd be having some very tough conversations about Joe Burrow. And so Burrow's very lucky. And I like Joe Burrow. I think he's a great player. But thankfully he has some signature playoff moments. Otherwise, we'd be very concerned. And then finishing first in the division, I have Baltimore. I do have Baltimore finishing first in the AFC North. I have them winning that division. I know they have a first-year head coach in Jesse Minter, and I know that's everybody's kind of like, on that. I know I like it because I like that he's going to really shore up that defense. I kind of feel like it's a Mike McDonald thing with what Mike McDonald did in Seattle last year to really scheme up something really good as a new head coach. To get all that solidified, I think he's going to do a great job of doing that. I like the offensive coordinator hire in Declan Doyle. Yes, this is his first time calling plays, but he's studied under Ben Johnson and Sean Payton. He knows what he's doing. And also, you're working with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Like, they're giving you something. So I know Lamar's energized by it. They're very excited about where things are going. And, yeah, that being said, I expect the Ravens to win that division. I expect them to be very good this year. I think they're disappointed by how last year went. Obviously, even despite all the injuries and everything else, they almost made the playoffs. They almost won their division and made the playoffs despite everything. If it wasn't for that missed kick, Tyler Loop just makes that field goal. The Ravens are hosting a playoff game last year, despite everything. I don't think a coach change is going to impact them that much. If anything, it's only going to elevate them because of the talent they have on that roster and the people they have in that building. So I expect the Ravens to be back kicking, and they'll take the AFC North. However, the Bengals will slip in as a wild card team. So 2 playoff teams out of the AFC North, which is not surprising. I think it's just which teams do you think it's going to be. That only leaves 2 wild card spots remaining, though. I will address those. I will kind of tease a hot take now. There's no more wild card teams in this episode, which, if you know, I'm about to talk about the AFC East, which is, think about it, it's going to be interesting. So moving on to the AFC East, I have finishing last in that division, I have Miami. And that's not, I think some people might be surprised it's not the Jets. Miami is paying, like, what is it, over $100 million or something like that. They have like $95 million in dead cap. Literally half their cap space is just paying people to not play for them. I mean, that Tua contract that they had to shed, that they're still paying off, all these other different bad deals. I mean, Malik Willis, they signed him as a stopgap. Jeff Hafley is the new head coach. He's going to have a pretty long leash as head coach because they're not going to be good this year. I did like a lot of what they did in the draft, but you're asking a lot for those guys to just immediately step up and elevate. I think, they have some good pieces. I think, Wreckham, my boy Jacob Rodriguez, I think he could be a very good piece for them in 2 to 3 years. I don't think that's going to happen overnight. And they're just not good. I think they're very much tanking and already doing a lot of advanced scouting on the highly touted 2027 quarterback class because they expect to be drafting high. And yes, they signed Malik Willis to that, 3-year, $60 million deal or something like that. They do not. If anything, they'll be bad enough this year that they can draft a quarterback high, and then if that guy needs to sit for a year or two, they can still trot Willis out there and, let him take the reps until that guy's ready. They're playing the long game right now. They want to be bad. It's the same thing as the tank for Tua. Whether it's Dante Moore, Arch Manning, whoever it ends up being, the Dolphins have already kind of thrown this season away. They traded Jalen Waddle away. They've torn this thing down to the studs, and they're starting over. They got rid of Tua. They just got to get through this season of paying people off to get them off their books, and then they'll be able to kind of start reevaluating, reassessing, and it's sad because they have not won a playoff game in a very, very, very long time, and that streak's going to continue for a while. The Dolphins are terrible. They're so bad. They very easily could be the worst team in the league this year. And I don't think they would be, and part of me thinks they're trying to be. If you asked the higher-ups behind closed doors, they're not exactly out here trying to win 2 or 3. You win those 2 or 3 extra games, you drop 3 or 4 spots in the draft, and then you're not getting the guy you want. So we'll see what happens there. Finishing third in that division, I have the Jets, to nobody's surprise. Aaron Glenn and Geno Smith, they trust. Everybody rips the Jets. I rip the Jets. They have guys, but it's nothing that jumps off the screen. I mean, Geno was the worst quarterback in the league last year. He was the worst starting quarterback in football. And you expect him to go back to New York and all of a sudden everything's going to be fine? Like, I think the Jets are in a very similar situation to the Dolphins, and where Geno is just kind of there for fun times and, we're going to hang out and act like everything's fine, but really we're just trying to do some advanced scouting on the next guy. The AFC East just cracks me up because you got the Bills and the Patriots, the top two teams. Like, the gap between the top two teams and the bottom two teams is larger than any other team in any other division, save maybe the AFC South. The gap between the top two and the bottom two is so wide. And so, because, I mean, if you told me, like, would anybody be surprised if you were like, yeah, the Dolphins are going to win 3 games and the Jets are going to win 4 games, but then the Bills are going to win 12 games and the Patriots will win, 10 or 11 games? Everybody would believe you if you told them that was going to happen. Like, if a time traveler told you that was the future, it's like, yeah, okay. Doesn't even prove you're a time traveler, because it's like, yeah, we all expect that. Like, that's totally believable. So why would you even, like, give me a hot take to prove that you're actually from the future? Like, this is pretty easy to predict. So the Jets they're gonna finish 3rd in their division, but it doesn't mean they're gonna be even half decent. I mean, they're still working through a lot of stuff, and they're gonna need a reset at the quarterback position. Geno's just kind of tiding them over. It is interesting how many teams are kind of just plugging the hole at quarterback for a year or two and praying that that their savior is on the horizon next year or the year after. And then here's where I start to get into my hot takes. So I have the Patriots finishing 2nd in the East, and I have them missing the playoffs. I do not have them making the playoffs, which I know is surprising. They literally just made the Super Bowl. I think the Super Bowl hangover is real, first of all. We've seen it with Cincinnati. We've seen it with the 49ers. We've seen it with the Eagles even. Like, the Super Bowl hangover is real. When you make the Super Bowl and lose, the next year is just... The Super Bowl, losing the Super Bowl is a very tough loss to overcome, especially when you're in the Patriots position and you get your teeth kicked in. I mean, the Super Bowl was a blowout. Like, Seattle walked, like, the score was close for a while in the Super Bowl, but Seattle was in total control of that game start to finish. It never felt like New England had a chance. And so when you're in that situation, I think the hangover is going to be real. I think a lot of guys are going to be watching the tape back on how Seattle attacked Drake May. I think the Patriots playing a first-place schedule instead of the easiest schedule, ever is going to matter. I think it's, like, I'm not saying they're going to be completely terrible, but when you're playing more good teams, like they have to go to Seattle opening night, I think there's a lot, they just play a lot of really good teams. And I think now that we have a full year of film on Drake May, I'm not saying he's going to be bad, but I do think he's going to take a step back. A.J. Brown, everybody likes that he's in the building. I think he's a locker room cancer. I'm just not very high on him. I expect them to keep their head above water, maybe go like 9-8, but is that going to be enough? There's a lot of good teams in the AFC. It does feel like you have to win at least 10-plus games to make the playoffs. Like, you start looking at the list of teams. When I was doing these predictions, you start going down the list of teams, and it's like, well, only 7 teams make the playoffs. And some of these teams, it's like, well, you have to have a winner from this division. So, and then you start looking, and it's like, there's 9 or 10 teams that are legitimate playoff contenders. Somebody has to be left out in the cold, and I think the Patriots are one of them. I think it's the only reason they would make it is because they play the Jets and the Dolphins 4 games. If they sweep them and then start winning rattle off, 6 more wins, then yeah, I guess it's possible at that point. But I'm just not. A lot of people say the Patriots last year kind of felt like a fluke. I'm not going to say it was a fluke. but they did catch a lot of lucky breaks both in the regular season and the postseason. And I think the Super Bowl hangover is going to be real. They're not going to surprise anybody like they did last year either. And I don't think they made enough significant improvements to their roster for them to maintain or up their competitiveness. So I'm not saying Drake May is going to be bad, but don't expect them just to pick up where they left off from last year. That's my 2 cents on that. So that being said, I have the Bills winning this division. And I have the Bills, I'll go ahead and tease it now. I have the Bills as the 1 seed in the AFC for the playoffs. I have them getting that first round bye. I think I don't mind the promotion of Joe Brady. I really don't. He's been in that building for a while. He's been in that locker room for a while. And these guys really like him. And yeah, I expect Buffalo to be extremely, extremely good. And there's really nothing more to say to it than that. Like, I think Josh Allen is going to be dealing. I think, Josh Allen, after last year losing to Denver like that in the playoffs, I'm not saying, I'm not going to give any playoff predictions right now. The Bills are always just a very good regular season team. I do think them finishing second in their division, unlike they've been finishing first the past few years, they're going to have an easier schedule as a result of that. It's not the easiest schedule in the world, but it's a little bit better than it's been. I think that's going to help them a lot. I just really like the Bills. I think Josh Allen is just so good that if he's healthy, you're going to have a chance in every single game, and I think they have enough pieces around him. Is it going to be enough? We'll see, but, it does kind of feel like sometimes, in the McDermott days, it was like, well, they're only here because of Josh Allen, and it's like, even if that's the case again, they get pretty far with him. I expect them to win the division. I think they're just really good. They expect to be really good. Josh Allen has a new number 1 in DJ Moore. Now, is he one of the best receivers in the league? No, but he is still a bona fide number 1 target. I expect him to have a very good season, finally get back to the 1,000-yard mark, which he had not really been doing in Chicago. So DJ Moore, going to be a huge weapon for them. They still got Dalton Kincaid. They still got Shakir. James Cook out of the backfield is going to be great for them as he's been. I expect their offense to be firing on all cylinders. And if their defense can just hold, if you hold them to 20 points a game, Josh Allen will give you 27, 28. So that's fine. I do think they've got the guys to at least be able to do that. So Buffalo wins that division. I think they finish as the 1 seed due to the division they're in, and they have an easier schedule than they have. I think they're going to be very good. I think people are over just promoting a guy. The culture shift is still going to be very real. I know a lot of people in the building are very optimistic about it. So now those new uniforms they debuted look terrible. They look absolutely god-awful. But as long as there's winning games, who cares how you look while you're doing it, right? Right? So that's going to do it for part 1 of our AFC preview. Part 2 will come out on Friday with the AFC South and the AFC West before we transition over to the NFC next week. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great week, and I will see y'all Friday. Bye.